the announcements going on saying that this is a lockdown, and then police just came in there with their guns telling us that this is not a drill.
And I heard screaming and everything. At first, I thought it was like someone just like playing around in the hallway. I was like, no guys, I told everybody to get down, because this, like, you don't joke around with that.
Breaking news, deadly gunfire erupts at a high school in Georgia. At least 4 people are dead. A suspect is in custody as authorities race to piece together what happened. Also, cell phones, schools, and making the tough call on what can be a major distraction as more districts across America make the move to ban them. Hear what the New York City schools chancellor has to say about it, plus important guidelines on managing screen time. And she is on a star-spangled mission. Meet the young lady from Long Island on a quest to sing the national anthem at every Major League Baseball stadium.
From ABC-7 New York, this is Eyewitness News Extra Time.
Good evening and welcome to this edition of Eyewitness News Extra Time. I'm Anthony Carlo. We begin tonight with breaking news and unfortunately a new round of school violence. A heartbreaking scene at a school about 45 miles outside of Atlanta, Georgia. Students on the football field huddled in fear and sadness and prayer after 2 of their classmates and 2 of their teachers were killed. Several more were wounded. Tonight, police say they arrested the shooter, a 14-year-old student of the school. Eyewitness News reporter Stefan Kim in the newsroom for us with the very latest. Stefan.
Well, Anthony, law enforcement officials say all of the other 9 victims who were injured were also struck by gunfire. Investigators say it's still unclear who, if anyone, he was targeting or how many rounds he discharged. The suspect is being interviewed, and the sheriff says he is talking to them.
They're telling us to run.
It is the frantic moment after a shooter opened fire at Appalachia High School in Winder, Georgia, about 45 miles outside of Atlanta. The horror unfolding just as the new school year was getting back into swing. Parents showing up in panic, first responders racing to the scene, inconsolable students huddled on the football field. Images we have become all too familiar with.
I said, son, please tell me you're joking. He said, no, Mom, I'm not joking. He said, they shooting in the school, and the shooter is right across the hall from me.
4 people have been killed, 2 students and 2 teachers. Another 9 victims are in the hospital with gunshot wounds. One student says he heard multiple gunshots and screams coming from the classroom next door. And as students huddled together in the back of the room with the door locked, that student says someone pounded on the door saying, "Open up," before there were more gunshots and screams.
We went to the hallway that it was happening, and that's when I saw like my math teacher, and he was all covered. I saw blood everywhere.
It was around 10:20 this morning. Law enforcement arriving on scene within minutes, as well as 2 school resource officers assigned to the school, immediately encountering the shooter. The shooter immediately surrendering to those officers and taken into custody. Officials say the shooter is 14-year-old Colt Gray.
I never imagined that I would be speaking to the media in my career over something that happened today, the pure evil that happened today. I cannot thank the people behind me for the support they give me today, to give this office and give this staff. This hits home for me. I was born and raised here. I went to school in this school system. My kids go to this school system.
Now, how the suspect obtained the firearm and how he got it into the school is still under investigation. A motive has not been yet determined. Officials say they'll provide another update in a few hours. Back to you.
So devastating. Stefan, thank you for that. And we invite you to stay with Eyewitness News and ABC News for continuing coverage of this deadly school shooting in Georgia. We will be sure to push out any alerts as they happen. Meantime, in our area, more gun violence to tell you about. A teacher in the Bronx was shot today by a stray bullet while setting up his classroom for the first day of school tomorrow. That bullet went flying through a window on the 6th floor of MS 391 in the Fordham Heights section just before noon. The bullet grazed the 33-year-old teacher's right hand. Medics took him to the hospital. He's since been released. Police believe that bullet came from a long distance away and the school was not intentionally targeted.
I don't know, tomorrow he's going to come here. He's going to say, Ma, I don't want to go. maybe the person will come after us.
He's a returning teacher. He teaches special ed. He loves MS 391, and as all teachers have been doing the last couple of days, he was setting up his classroom when it happened and didn't even realize that a bullet had grazed his hand until he looked down and saw that he was bleeding.
Well, let me be clear. This bullet was not fired from inside the school. And at this point of the investigation, we believe it was fired from a long distance away. The school was not targeted.
Well, police say there will be extra security at the school tomorrow for the first day of school out of an abundance of caution. They are trying to figure out who fired the shot, which they believe, again, came from an elevated area. Things are getting back to normal on the east side, but it was a much different scene earlier today. That's because a contractor accidentally drilled a hole into the top of the Queens Midtown tunnel, causing water to leak inside. This forced the tunnel to close for a while and triggered lots of gridlock and frustrated drivers. Eyewitness News reporter Shannon Sohn has the story from Newscopter 7.
Well, it took about 4.5 hours from when the tunnel first closed at about 1:30 this afternoon to get traffic back to normal. And unfortunately, the damage was already done. But we can show you here that as of 5:50 this afternoon, the entrances to the outbound side of the Queens Midtown Tunnel finally reopened. Unfortunately, like we mentioned, the damage was already done. We'll bring up Street Spotter 7 and show you what you have to deal with trying to get to the Queens Midtown Tunnel, because with this in place for as long as it was in place, we had a lot of traffic being forced over to the 59th Street Bridge. What that meant as you took it up 3rd Avenue, this is what you had in store for you. It was a line of traffic that took you all the way up to the 59th Street Bridge. That was your obvious alternate to get around this. The other obvious alternate was to take mass transit for the afternoon. Of course, buses were affected by this as well. And as we bring you over to the Queens side, we had all traffic going through the north too, which meant it was being shared by Queens and Manhattan-bound traffic, and that meant delays on the LIE that took you back consistently to the BQE for the entirety of the rush hour. Again, 5:50 is when things got back to normal. Unfortunately, rush hour down and out for the count. Hopefully, it'll mean a much, much nicer ride tomorrow for when schools are back in session. Reporting over the Queens Midtown Tunnel, Shannon Sohn, Channel 7, Eyewitness News.
Shannon, thank you. As we continue with Eyewitness News Extra Time, cell phones in schools. Some school districts across the country are making the call to ban them from the classroom. You'll hear from what the New York City Schools Chancellor, what he has to say about it, plus how parents and educators can better manage young people and screen time. It's a new school year, and with new school year comes new rules. We know that, right? Cell phone bans are among the changes schools across America are making in the name of better student engagement. A report by the Pew Research Center in June found that 72% of high school teachers in the U.S. say cell phone distraction is a major problem in the classroom. More schools are now enacting rules or tightening enforcement of old ones to keep students off their screens. The topic of cell phones in schools was just one of the many hot-button issues that came up during our back-to-school town hall right here on ABC-7 NY, moderated by Eyewitness News anchors Shirlene Alicott and Mike Marza. They were joined by New York City Schools Chancellor David Banks, and they asked him about the possibility of banning cell phones in New York City public schools.
I understand parents having that sense of anxiety and wanting to constantly be able to be in communication with their kids. Yeah. But we also recognize that there is a lot of data that tells us about the harmful effects every single day that access to these phones are having on our kids. I don't want our kids to not have their phones where they can be in communication with their parents as they go to school and as they go home from school. Right. But we still don't see the best reasons for them to have access to the phone during the school day. We still think the best way is to be in communication with the school whenever there's an emergency, and we still think that that is the best way to go. Now, we've not imposed a full-on cell phone ban. Most of our schools still have cell phones there. What we are doing, and we're saying tonight, we are strongly encouraging our schools to take a look at this and create ways to prevent kids from having cell phones while they're still in the class. They're distracting. We found that they presented lots of safety issues with cyberbullying, and we don't see any strong academic reasons for having the phones in the school.
I think the Chancellor made it clear it's a tricky topic there. So what are some guidelines for educators and parents about screen time as the new school year begins? Joining us now with more is Dr. Caroline Mendel of the Child Mind Institute. Dr. Mendel, thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. We know that kids are on their phones a lot nowadays, pretty obvious. What are the most significant psychological and behavioral impacts you've observed?
So phone use and screen time use is something that comes up in virtually all of the sessions that I have with parents. And they have concerns that range from the impact that phones are having on developing healthy habits, like getting enough sleep or completing their homework, the impact on self-esteem, the behavioral escalations that may occur when screens are restricted. So it really is wide-ranging, the concerns that I hear from the families that I work with.
It's a lot to unpack. The Mayo Clinic recommends a maximum of 2 hours of screen time per day for teens and adults. Yet we know a lot of parents struggle to enforce these limits. Do you have any practical strategies parents and educators alike can implement to help children sort of follow those guidelines?
Sure. It is certainly a hard task, and unfortunately there is no perfect or right answer, but certain things that we know do support certain screen time limits. One is setting clear rules. So when, where, and how kids can use their screen. So it's not always saying that they can't use them all the time at home, but certain ways in which they can use them, or certain places where they wouldn't want to use them, like at the dinner table. Oftentimes involving your child in those discussions can be really helpful, because kids are more likely to follow rules when they've had a hand in creating them, or when you can connect what those rules are to their values or goals. Another great thing to do is to model screen use yourself, model restricting your own screen use. So kids really pick up on what we're doing. And if you want to have family time, make sure that your phone is away. If you want to show that, this is a time where we're going to connect together, you also are going to be putting your phone away. You also want to make sure that you're sticking with the plan. So once you have that plan, you don't want to kind of give in. You want to show that you mean it. You may expect certain pushback from your kids at first, but stand firm, especially if you were really thoughtful in creating that plan. And then you can always adjust it later on after you've had a chance to put it into place. So if your child says, you know what, it really does help me to do my homework when I'm listening to music, you can say, great, let's see how it works. Let's see if you're able to get that homework done and still have access to the screen, or FaceTime your friends to ask them a homework question, we'll keep it going. So there isn't necessarily a one-size-fits-all approach. You have to think about what works for your particular child. And if they're meeting their goals as a kid of getting their homework done, engaging with friends, being part of extracurriculars, that's another great thing you can do, is just like get them out of the house, get them involved in other things. The less time that you have to be kind of monitoring and policing the screen use, the easier it will be for you.
Well, I like the rule about no cell phones at the dinner table. And you touched on my next question a little bit, but I want to elaborate more. How can parents and educators make sure that students stay connected using technology? We heard the school's chancellor, it's a delicate balance, especially in school, but they need some sort of technology even with their education, but also doing that and striking the balance of limiting the potential negative effects of all of that screen time and how that could affect their academic performance.
Yeah, it definitely is a balance. And this is always what we want to look for, is how is any particular behavior impacting a child's functioning? So if it's something that's getting in the way of engaging and forming those connections, forming those friendships that you want them to have in person, if it's something that is impacting them getting their homework done, if it is distracting them in class, right? Those are the things that you really want to look for and say, okay, now we need to do something about this. Another important thing is that technology use, screens are here to stay. This is something that this is the world that we're living in now. And we have to figure out the best way to help kids become good digital citizens, to engage in digital literacy. And those are the ways that schools can help kids be, smart consumers of what they're engaging with online. But that's not to say that they need to have their phone with them in order for that to happen. They can still, learn that at school, learn that at home. And again, it's about that effective use when they're using their screens, and being able to integrate that into the other things in their life that they're doing, really balancing all these other things that they have to accomplish.
Sure, content that they're taking in certainly matters. Dr. Caroline Mandel from the Child Mind Institute, thank you so much for your insight tonight.
Thank you for having me.
And as we continue with Eyewitness News Extra Time, taking a live look outside, Chief Meteorologist Lee Goldberg will have an update on the exclusive AccuWeather forecast. Also, a star-spangled sensation, the singer from Long Island, on a unique quest to be the first to sing at, get this, all the Major League Baseball ballparks across America. You'll get to meet her right up next.
At the twilight's last gleaming, whose bright o'er the land of the free and the home of
That is Oceanside, Long Island's very own Allie Burke, hitting the national anthem right out of the park. The 23-year-old singer is on a unique mission. You might call it unique. She's trying to be the first person to sing the anthem at all 30 Major League Baseball ballparks. That's a lot of country to see. And joining us now with more is 23-year-old Allie Burke of Oceanside. Very exciting to have you on the show, Allie. Thank you so much.
Hi. Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So you've got a very strong voice, I have to tell you, and you've got a
Thank you.
pretty big goal to sing at all 30 Major League Baseball stadiums.
Yeah.
How did you even begin to take that challenge on? What made you think of this?
Yeah, so I've been singing for quite some time, for at least like 11 years now. And I've had the opportunity to sing at a few ballparks over the years. But last year, I got the opportunity to sing at Fenway Park for the Boston Red Sox, which was super, super cool. And kind of when we were going into that, me and my dad had this thought of how cool would it be if I could sing the national anthem at all 30 Major League ballparks. And we kind of started researching it, and we were like, has anybody ever done this before? And it turns out that nobody has done it. So I was like, how cool would it be if I could be the first person to do it, break the record, see all these different states, all these different ballparks, and just kind of like get my name out there, you know? So it's been quite a journey, but it's been so much fun.
Well, Fenway is a historic place, of course, to start. Now, you've performed, we understand, at 11 Major League Baseball stadiums. What about your background? You know, how long have you been singing, first of all? And do you face any challenges? Are nerves an issue? Do you feel any anxiety?
Yeah, so as of yesterday, I've sang at 12 Major League ballparks, which is crazy to say. I'm almost halfway there. But I think that every single time I've kind of like gotten used to the anthem in the sense of where I'm definitely very confident in it now, but you know, every time before you do it, you can't help but get a little anxious, you know. I always tell people like the amount of time between sound check and actually going out and doing it is like the worst like 2 hours ever, because you're kind of just like anticipating it, you know, like you get a feel for what it's like, and then you're like, okay, you have to do the real thing in 2 hours, you know? So I feel like just like a lot of anticipation, but I'm always like so excited. I'm always super confident. And I feel like over the years, I've really like kind of built up the confidence after doing it so many times where I can be like, okay, like I got this.
That is awesome. You know, you mentioned it a little bit. There's so much preparation, right, that actually goes into this. How much of that preparation centers on sort of the unique acoustics and the atmosphere of each stadium? Every stadium is different. How much of that plays into your approach?
I mean, honestly, like so much of it, you know, like it's just like anything else. Like if a performer goes on stage and they can't hear themselves, it can really, really affect the performance. Luckily, I do have an in-ear monitor where a lot of the stadiums do give me a pack where I'm only able to hear myself, not the delay, which is honestly very great because in all these big stadiums, there's bound to be a delay because of just how big it is and how powerful the speakers are. So it definitely can affect it, but I have to say like 95% of the stadiums have been really good with the in-ears and the effectiveness of the sound.
So, and baseball stadiums and ballparks are not your only specialty, right? We understand you've been at Madison Square Garden, right? So
yeah.
What's the differentiation? You know, if you had to compare the two, which one do you like more? And are there, you know, what are the major differences?
Yeah, I mean, singing at the Garden, I think, was honestly just like so insane. It was like huge bucket list item, you know, being a singer for so many years. I think anybody that's an aspiring singer performer, they always say like Madison Square Garden is like when you know you've made it. And like I haven't like sold out the Garden yet, but like I will one day. But I did get a little taste of it, and I think that when you're in an enclosed space, a legendary space like that, it's honestly such a surreal feeling because I feel like you're so much closer with the audience. Like the lights go down, it's completely dark in there. The only spotlight's on you, which is insanely nerve-wracking. I've never been more nervous for anything in my life than when I sang the anthem for the Knicks, because even though I was confident in it, it was just like, holy moly, like I'm at Madison Square Garden. But it was so fun, and I honestly nothing will beat that experience for me, but the baseball ones are always just so fun because it's just like a different crowd every time and always a different experience.
The mecca of basketball. Hopefully the Knicks have another good season and you'll be back there. Allie Burke, thank you so much for joining us tonight, and we wish you the best.
Thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Time now for the exclusive AccuWeather forecast. Here's Chief Meteorologist Lee Goldberg.
On the waters tomorrow, it's going to be 4- and 5-foot waves and a high rip current risk. Be aware of that tomorrow. The humidity is still low, but it's coming up. If you saw some of that haze today, that was some of the Canadian wildfire smoke. It's a trade-off. Every time we get these nice, refreshing air masses coming out of Canada, you get some of the smoke. And it was a narrow band that actually slices through tonight. Not as thick tomorrow. And by the way, this is all aloft, not at the ground. Our air quality isn't compromised. But there will be some waves of haze in today, tomorrow, and even in the day on Friday. But we also get some general cloud cover along with that, so it won't be as noticeable on Friday. There's actually a fair amount of heat to our west, but it doesn't get there because all of our wind is coming off the Atlantic. So we increase the humidity by getting that ocean air coming in. We're in the low and mid 70s now. Got a great evening. A familiar forecast tomorrow. Sunshine, 70s, again a touch of haze. Because the humidity is up a little bit, and we're not talking uncomfortable, it'll make that upper 70s feel like around 80 degrees tomorrow. Friday's definitely more clouds, not totally overcast, but a lot of clouds, more humid, but it still remains dry. Even Saturday, we salvage at least half the day, in a best case through mid-afternoon, and then some showers come in late day, have your umbrella Saturday evening, but it's probably gone after midnight on Sunday, and we get a nice second half of the weekend. High pressure is now offshore. That means our wind is now coming off the water, keeping all this moisture down to the south. That's not coming our way. It kind of goes offshore. But we wait for this front to come in. And in between, some of these clouds start to converge on us. So by tomorrow morning, comfortably cool, nice and comfortable at the bus stop in New York City, maybe a light jacket in the suburbs. We get in the mid and upper 70s again because it's a touch more humid, probably feels a little warmer, near about 80 degrees, mostly sunny skies. By Friday morning, some low clouds are coming in. I think those sprinkles are overdone. Maybe this is an isolated sprinkle. We get back to the mid 70s. We're humid, but we are dry on your Friday. Now over the weekend, here comes that front off to the west. Probably holds off until afternoon, but then we have showers, maybe even a thunder shower into the evening hours, and then it'll start to pull away. Tonight, 62, clear, a little less haze aloft, comfortably cool. For tomorrow, up to 77, mostly sunny, a bit of haze, and feeling warmer. And again, by the way, rip current risk is high and waves 4 to 5 feet. Tomorrow night, 63 degrees. The clouds will be increasing late, a little milder, a little muggy, and here's your 7-day. More clouds and humidity on Friday, but dry. Late day and evening rain Saturday. Sunday clears out. Great stretch of weather Monday and Tuesday, and of course, 1 week from today, 9/11. It will be dry at ground zero in the morning for all ceremonies and observances.
All right, dry on Friday. That makes me happy. Lee, thank you so much. And that wraps up this edition of Eyewitness News Extra Time. Thank you for joining us. I'm Anthony Carlo. We will be back live on Eyewitness News at 11, and we hope to see you then. Have a great evening, and try to look as good as Lady Liberty there.